All right. So where we left off last class is that I taught we were reviewing the different methods of creating curtain walls in Revit. The automatic method. All right. So oops. Where we left off last class is that I taught we were reviewing the different methods of creating curtain walls in Revit. The automatic method. Sorry about that. That was me getting recorded. All right, so we were looking at the different method of creating curtain wall panels, and the automatic method is one in which we use the storefront family, and this will enable me to create storefront with a set of rules that are predefined in the type properties of the assembly. And then there's a manual method, which out of the box is started. You can build it with a family called curtain wall one, which you start with a big gigantic piece of glazing, and then you have to manually subdivide it in panels using the curtain grid. Use the temporary dimension in between to adjust the distance between the verticals and the horizontals. And then you can place mullions, which are profile extruded along the grid to document the different mullion conditions. This is more tedious and longer, but it gives you greater flexibility. We also review the process of swapping panels from one panel type to another one. And this is the proper way of placing curtain wall doors. And so this is a gigantic door that I've just placed. But the size of the door is actually the distance between the grids. So when I add additional grids, then the panel gets subdivided. I added a vertical grid there. Let me add another one here. And now I have 4 doors. If I need to change the panels from the top, tab, select, and swap it with a different glass type or a different wall type. In this case, I'm just doing this with a brick wall, and or you can also swap it with another storefront, like a storefront nested inside another storefront. So these are again give of greater flexibility, and I also end up with showing you how to create a new custom material from scratch. So hopefully everybody's caught up with the files here. If you don't have the latest files, remember last class I mentioned that in the in my folder I have in Google Drive, there's a new folder called weekly datasets, and the last class 0708 has, no, it was 6 and 6. I have the links. I put them here. Oh, sorry, I put them on 0713. They should be in the previous one, but this is the starting point for today's class. I'll fix that later.
Sorry, can everyone mute, please? Thank you.
All right. Okay, any questions so far? What the content is? All right, let's review. I want to review something about patterns today. And last class I mentioned that when we create custom materials, we have to associate material with a projection pattern and cut patterns. And the patterns comes in 2 types. The drafting patterns and the model patterns. Something I didn't discuss is how you create a new pattern from scratch. So let me review that very quickly. So in the last class, we created a new panel, and the panel we associated with a new material, green material. And we created that material from scratch. So let me review the process very quickly. You don't have to do it because this is a refresher what I did last class. If I want to create a new panel, and this time is a red panel, then I could create a new type, change the parameter values, and change the material. So I'm going to do it very quickly just so that you have a review how it's done. We added the type and duplicate it, and now I'm going to call this red panel. Then I go into the materials, and I don't have a red glass material. And so what we did last time, we duplicated a material, and I'm going to call this duplication glass red. The glass red already had some identity properties. The class is important one, and it has shading information. It has surface pattern and appearance pattern. In the appearance tab, notice how there is a hand with a glass with a little one, which it's telling me that there is a material in use that has these assets present. And so to replace the asset, I open the asset browser and go into the appearance library, and then go into the glass category. And I pick this one that says glass red. And all I need to do is double click the asset to transfer that asset into the appearance tab. And notice how now the little icon has 0, which means there's no materials in the project that are using this asset. Then I go into the graphic again. I use the render appearance here to make this a red color. But then I disable it again to change the transparency to something less, like 75%. And what this does, it inherits the RGB color from the appearance tab. 196, 53, 36 is an RGB color. And those values are transferred over into the shading. And so this will give a red color to the glass. But I need to reduce the transparency to something less so that it doesn't become 100% invisible. And that's why I disabled the checkbox again. Now, the other thing is the surface pattern and the cut pattern. When you hit a pattern, I think I explained last time that a drafting pattern is it's a type of pattern that represents generic industry representations of materials, concrete, aluminum, hatches. And the proportion between the elements that are part of the hatch are consistent regardless of the scale of the view. For example, concrete always needs to look the same way, where if the view is a 1/8 or a 1/4 or a 1/1. And so the representation of the material is static. It doesn't change between view scales. And then we have the model ones that are unitized. And these are based on a product material that is fabricated at a specific distance. And the pattern, it's remain fixed. And what that means is that it's going to preserve the measurement between the elements as a constant, as opposed to the representation. And so if you're looking, for example, at a floor pattern, 12-inch style is going to measure 12 inches in every view. but then graphically, it's going to look more dense in some views, and it's going to look bigger in larger scales. And so what I did not show is how you create patterns from scratch. And let's do an example. So let's say I want to create a specific, let's say a tile that is 24 by 24 inches. And notice that in the available hatches, I don't have a 24-inch tile. So what I do is very easy. You create a new fill pattern in the icon that has this little, again, if you want to get to where I am, just go again into the, I was in the middle of creating a panel, so you edit the type, I duplicate, rename, change the material, and then I was going to create a new pattern from the pattern button here, and then create a new fill pattern. And I want a 24-inch, well, not a drafting one. So I need to make sure that I pick the appropriate button. Not drafting, I need to be in the model one. Then I create a new fill pattern. I call this 24-inch tile. And it's going to be a crosshatch with line spacing of 2 feet in every direction. Maybe the line angle is 0. And as soon as I hit OK, then I have a new pattern. And this pattern could be associated with a material. So I was in the middle of creating a red material. So let me just do that quickly. Again, red. And then in the appearance, I picked in the appearance library, the red glass. I switch to graphics, enable the render appearance, disable it again, and change this to 75. And then in the pattern, I have the 24 by 24 tile. This is part of the red glass material. And if I click apply here and apply, then that pattern is embedded as a material. So this 24 by 24, you can use it if you have like tiles or glass tiles, etc. Now, the limitation about creating patterns is that you can only do it vertical and horizontal patterns using lines. But if we want to create something that is more elaborate, then we'll have to use AutoCAD PAT or .pat file types. So if you're familiar with AutoCAD, you remember, a second, I need to disable this thing. .pat are files from AutoCAD hatch patterns. And you can find hatch patterns everywhere. In fact, if you just go into the web and try to look for a specific type of patterns, like I just Google hatch patterns. These are dozens of hatch patterns that I can download free from the internet. I already downloaded one that is called this wood pattern, this specific type of wood pattern that maybe you want to include in your library. So if you want to follow along with this exercise, in the Google Drive, I have a folder called patterns here. So if you open it, there are 2 patterns. Feel free to download that. I'm also going to post this folder link into the chat panel. And so on the chat panel, this is the pattern exercise. Just click that link and download those 2 hatch pattern definitions, which I just collected from the internet. All right, so how do I create a more elaborate hatch pattern? All right, let's say, for example, this is a, I'm gonna wait for you all to download the pattern. And while you do that, let's say, for example, your technical architect tells you that glass needs to be represented with a hatch that looks like this. You all agree that this is the proper way of representing glass, right? It has these little marks that represent that there is a hatch there. Or not, maybe you don't care. But if you were asked to embed a hatch inside the glass that looks like that, you're not going to find it out of the box, a pattern that looks like that. And so what I did is I just look on the internet for a hatch pattern for glass, so a hatch pattern glass. And if I look via images, notice that this is probably the type of pattern that I was looking for. And so a lot of these patterns are available to you for free. Obviously, be conscious about not downloading just anything, because there are obviously risks of downloading things from a site that is a little risky. But for the most part, this, for example, this Archie blocks has a tons of different patterns that you can download for free. And all of them could become Revit patterns. And so in the pattern definition that I downloaded.
Sorry, Cesar. I think there's somebody who's not unmuted. Possibly Ruth. Could you try muting your phone, your computer?
Oh, sure.
Because it's hard to hear Cesar. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, let's try.
Give me a second also here. All right, so I think everybody's muted right now. So I'm going to try to embed a new hatch inside this panel, and I download that from the internet. And the name of that file, it's glass.pat. This is right now on my download folder because that's where I downloaded from. And when you open this, you're going to find that this is an AutoCAD hatch definition. I just opened it using Notepad. So the first time you open the PAT file, you can use it via right click and say open with Notepad. For some of you, your machine is not going to understand what the PAT file extension is at, but you can right click on the menu on the file and use the Notepad definition, and this will disclose the content inside that file. So there's a bunch of numbers inside this file. Obviously, there's an asterisk followed by a name and a comma. This word between the asterisk and the comma is the pattern name, and that's how Revit is going to understand it. Revit is going to pick on that name and is going to import it into the hatch pattern definitions. So if you want to name this pattern differently, you should give it a different name. for example, glass 01 or glass, whatever. I'm just gonna leave it as is, glass. And then the word that comes next to the comma, it's a glass is the pattern description. So you can be as long as you want in describing what this pattern is about. And then there's a bunch of numbers separated by comma. And a lot of these are, this is the manual way of creating, this is the old way of creating patterns from AutoCAD. So it started by disclosing the origin of the pattern. And this is in units. Then the X, the origin in X, the origin in Y, then the pattern spacing on X, the pattern spacing on Y, and this is pen up. The distance from, this was, remember, this way of creating hatches was when plotters were around, like pen plotters. And the last two words, the last two numbers indicate when the pen is up and the pen is down. And so to create one from scratch is super tedious. It's old school. We never do. I never wrote a pattern from scratch myself. I rather find something that's already pre-built in the internet or from AutoCAD. So I trust that this panel, this description is well, so I don't edit anything else. But one thing I need to do is to add a line that declare whether this pattern is a model or a drafting pattern. And this is something we have to do with something we download from the internet. It's a little line of code that includes the semicolon, then percentage, and then word type equal. You can put model if it's a model pattern, or drafting if it's a drafting pattern. So this line of code, it's a requirement and needs to be right below the pattern name. So for some of you, this might be a little bit too advanced, but I have power users here that maybe you already know this. This is how we add new patterns into Revit from AutoCAD definitions. So this representation of glasses, I'm going to say it's a drafting pattern. And all I need to do is now is save it. Save. And and make sure you type it correctly. It's semicolon, percentage, type equal drafting. If you have a mistake or you didn't type this correctly, the exercise is not going to work. So I'm going to save this file, close it, and I'm going to create a new hatch from scratch. So the way to add a new fill pattern is you go to the Manage tab, and then go to Additional Settings, and the very first option is Fill Patterns. Then I need to pick the drafting portion of the patterns, because it's a drafting pattern. If I had created a model, then I would pick model. I'm going to create a drafting here, and then I'm going to click on the button that says New Fill Pattern. It's this icon with a little like star on the upper left side. Don't give it a name, because remember, the name is imported from the hatch pattern definition. But rather than doing a basic pattern, which is very limited in the type of things I can do, you pick the custom type. And in here, browse for the hatch pattern definition. In my case, I have these in the download folder. Hit open. And notice how immediately I have a preview of how the hatch look like coming from the AutoCAD definition. And that's it. Make sure sometimes we need to fiddle with the scale, especially if the hatch pattern is in millimeters and somebody has downloaded from a non-imperial country. In that case, then you'll have to add the import scale of 12. And then in these options, there are three options which deal with the orientation of the hatch. Orient to view tries to align it perpendicular to the view. You can use keep readable or align with elements. I usually pick the align with elements because when it comes to construction elements, I want to make sure that the hatch is oriented with the element and not with the view. All right, with this, all the options in place, I just hit OK. And this glass pattern, this fill pattern is already an option available to me in my pattern definitions. So let's apply it to a panel. I'm going to pick the glass panel, the typical one. So in here, I hover over the edge of a panel and hit the tab key. Remember, you hit tab multiple times until you cycle on everything that is underneath the cursor. Pick the panel, the system glass. And if I want to make a global change of the system glass panel, you edit the type, edit the material, and then you can add a foreground surface pattern. And this pattern is the glass pattern that I just created. Hit apply, hit OK. And this is going to impact all the elements in the curtain walls that have a glass. And I just created a new hatch using an AutoCAD definition. That makes sense? Any questions? Let's try another one. Let's try to create a wood pattern. So let's say, for example, I'm going to select this floor, which is in the ground level of my floor here. I'm going to isolate. So to isolate a floor, you just go into the temporary elements and isolate element. Again, select the icon that has these glasses and click isolate element. Now I have my floor here. And say, for example, I want to, this whole floor is going to have, be some plywood. So when I go into the fill patterns, notice how there are some wood patterns here, but maybe you want something that is not too, it's a little bit more elaborate than this. And so in the folder on the Google Drive link that I sent to you, there's another file called HWOD20E1 pattern. This is another AutoCAD pattern. All right, so we're going to create a new pattern here, but first I need to make sure that the file is correctly set. So what I'll do here in my download folder, I have this HWD pattern, and this is the line that you guys need to make sure is there. Right below the name of the pattern. The name of the pattern is between the asterisk and the comma. Right after that line, there's a new line called with the characters column, percentage, type equal drafting. And this is just making sure that these the proportion of the hatch remain fixed regardless of the view scale. That's the purpose of the drafting view. So I added this line right below the name and then save it. Just file, save. Now let's create a new pattern here. So you go to the additional settings, fill patterns. I'm going to add a new drafting pattern. So hit the new fill pattern button. And don't give it a name. The name is retrieved from the pattern. So I switch it to custom. And I'm going to browse this and pick the plywood, the hardwood representation. Notice the scale. You need to have a preview, but I suspect that the preview, this needs to be very, very small. Yeah, notice how when I do 0.0125, then the hatch appears. And this is because of the units. I think Revit, this project is set up in inches, but the hatch pattern is set up in millimeters. And so I need to make a conversion between inches and millimeters, create an import scale, and get the appropriate preview. Once you have something in the preview, you hit OK here. And this new hatch pattern is for your use. If I want to apply that to the floor, edit the type of the floor, edit the structure. I'm going to be very simple here. I'm just going to change the structure and give it a new foreground pattern. No, I'm going to look for, actually I need to create a new material based on an existing one and associate that with a pattern. So let's see if there's some wood here. Like there's this wood stain. I'm going to right click. Yeah, I'm going to right click the wood stain and duplicate it. I'm going to call it hardwood. Hardwood 01. And then this pattern is going to have a foreground pattern associated with the plywood or the hardwood pattern. And yeah, and maybe if you want to pick a different asset, you can do that too. So this is the trim assets, but you can always go to the asset browser, appearance library. There's a wood classification, and looks like a lot of these are old types. I'm gonna make it oak, for example. Double click it, and then it's going to inherit all the properties from the assets. And then hit render appearance and hit apply, hit OK, and hit OK, and apply OK. And now my new hatch is now part of the hardwood material. The hardwood material is embedded into the floor. And that's how you create new hatches based on existing AutoCAD hatches. That makes sense? Again, you're learning Revit right now, and this might be a little too advanced. But if you are missing a hatch that you really want to have in your library of materials, you should talk with your BIM manager or whoever managed the template, your company template, and send him a note that, you know, we need this hatch. If you get a response that is not possible, you could build it yourself. Just search in the internet for the appropriate AutoCAD pattern, and you can do it yourself. There are free applications that create patterns for you. One of them, I think it's in the App Store. So if you go into the App Store, this icon here, and just look for a pattern. This hatch kit, it's a good one, but it's paid, obviously. And I work in companies that way, they have that. In these will build that TXT or that PAT definition for you based on something that you create on a drafting pattern and a drafting view. So in other words, you create the pattern in Revit or the module in Revit, and then HatchKit take care of the rest. It will build the definition for you. It will add it to Revit, so you don't have to do it manually. I don't know the price of this, but it shouldn't be that expensive. Yeah, $100. Not that bad. Or if you want to go that elaborate, right? If you want to create something that is very unique, like I think in the past I've been asked to do a very unique floor pattern, and I use this add-on for Revit to build it. All right, so this is how we created a new hatch pattern from scratch. Let me reset temporary hatches isolate. Now let's continue talking about the curtain walls. Any question about hatch patterns in Revit and how to make sure that you understand the units in order to scale it appropriately? All right. So I want to show you in the discussion of curtain wall, I want to show you that Revit has the ability to embed custom created panels as hatch pattern definitions. In the type properties of the curtain wall, you're going to find a property called curtain panel. Curtain panel. And a curtain panel is it's a family, and a family, remember, it's a collection of objects with the same properties and physical representation. These family, it's by default a system family called panel glazed. But these panels can be changed. These panels can be, you can bring new type of component families and make them part of the curtain wall panel. So in the list of files that I share with you in the Google Drive, there is a folder called hatch, let me see, curtain walls, and inside that there's a folder called curtain wall panels. Let me put this in the hatch panel, in the hatch panel. Let me put it in the chat panel. Curtain panels. All right, if you hit that click in the chat panel, you will have access to this folder. And this folder has 3 different panels. These are, remember, these are component families. Glazed panel with spider, curtain panel louver, glazed panel with spandrel. So I'm gonna make sure you download those. And let me know again, hit the Google Drive and download these 3 panels. The one I'm going to use is the curtain panel louver. So you can just download it from the website. Curtain panel louver. And let me quickly show you what is the advantage of using those type of custom panels. So the purpose, curtain panels can be used to create very elaborate systems of wall representations. Louvers is an example of that. A louver usually horizontal or vertical dimension, and the size in between them is something, and the open spacing is something that manufacturers will specify. But I shared with you guys this curtain panel louver. I'm just going to open that file. You don't have to open it. I just want to show you that this is a wall panel that has a repetitive array with a vertical constraint associated with the top and the bottom reference planes of this family. And this panel can take any dimension parametrically. And the size of this panel is going to adapt to the panel size embedded in the curtain wall. And so some of the parameters here, it's the width and the depth of the frame, the number of patterns in number of slats in the pattern. And when I bring this over into Revit, I could embed it into my curtain walls. So let's do that. I'm going to close this. And then I'm going to load that curtain wall panel into my Revit project. So you go to the Insert tab, Load Family. This is on my Downloads folder, so I'm going to go to this PC, download, and here is the curtain panel louver, and open it. The curtain panel is now an option available under the curtain panel families. And I can very easily tab select one of these panels. Hover over the edge of a wall pattern, a wall panel, select the panel, and in the type selector, you will see now the curtain panel louver. It's an option available to you that takes the shape and the size of the curtain wall panel. I'm going to repeat again. With the link that I sent you, download the family in a place that you can load it from. Load the family. And then hover over one of the panels. Touch the put the cursor on the edge of a panel and hit tab. Once you select the panel, you can swap it with a new curtain wall panel, the curtain wall panel louver. And it's going to just span across the size of the panel. It works exactly the same way as the doors. And so these families can be custom built. Let me show you some examples of curtain wall of usages. I think I posted this file also in the Google Drive. So on Google Drive, under curtain walls, there's a file called C12 curtain wall custom. If you download that file and open it, I'm gonna double click and open it. Oh, it's asking to upgrade. Yeah, upgrade it. Revit is gonna detect that the versions of the files are incompatible with your Revit and gonna ask you to download. And so these are, I'm gonna switch to the 3D view of this family. These are 3 different examples of curtain walls families used for displaying specific type of conditions. For example, look at this example. Let's go with this one. This is a curtain wall panel, but it has like a recessed spandrel, aluminum spandrel, in line with the interior face of the mullion. And then the glazing, it's in a different plane. And so you can create this different condition just by defining a specific panel, curtain wall panel. So I'm going to tab select to pick one of these panels. Come on. There you go. This is a panel. I'm going to edit the panel, and this panel has, it's a collection of two different materials separated by a mullion. And this family, you can save it to share it with somebody else, or you can load it into your own project and use it. Let me show you another example. This is the example I was showing you regarding the louvers. Like louvers is a special type of family. And I haven't really gone through the process of creating a family from scratch, but I just want to highlight it that, you know, the proper way of building some of these curtain walls definition is by building the appropriate curtain wall panel. This is another example of a family, a curtain wall family that has embedded both the glazing, the spider structure mechanism, and a sunshade. And these three pieces, all these three pieces are living under a similar, under the same component. This component can be loaded into your project, and it's a repetitive element. So you can tab select and click the panel and swap it with the appropriate type. And obviously, this pattern may need, you know, an end condition when you have a repeated. If I want to have, for example, this spider connection over here, I may have to build another family with the opposite location of the spider. So you will have two types of families. And then the very last one, if you flip it, I think here is an example of that. This is the panel, but the panel only have one spider. And so as you array it over, it's going to create your distribution accordingly, distribution of spiders accordingly. But obviously, when you get to the end of it, you may need to create unique conditions for that fill for end condition, both at the top and on the left condition. All right, these are just examples of, you know, how curtain walls work. I am not going to create a family from scratch for this, but when we hit the family creation topic at the end of the course, we may come back to this topic, and I'll show you how to create a new family from scratch. All right, any question about this curtain walls and custom glazing panels? All right, let's jump into the project, and let's wrap this project with curtain walls that span from level 1 to level 3, level 4. Let me see these here. Yeah, we want the curtain wall to start from level 2, which is this level, all the way to roof level. So the easy way to do that is to build this in the level 2 floor plan. So go to the level floor. And all we're going to do is we're going to create all our chain of storefronts using the clockwise direction. And why is this? Because the exterior side of when we create a wall, I think I show you guys this. When we create a wall, the direction of the exterior side, it's depends on the direction of the wall creation. So I created this chain of walls in a clockwise direction, and notice how the exterior symbol is pointing outwards. And so whenever you create storefronts in a building, do it in a clockwise direction, or if you do it in the opposite side, make sure you flip it later on. And so I'm going to create a curtain wall using these points, but then I'm going to offset it by 10 inches. These red dots are my clicks. I'm gonna snap to the grid intersections, but I'm gonna give it an offset of 10 inches, and these are going to span multiple floors. Well, let's try that. Or let me think. Let me see the distance between this and that. It's 2 feet. Oh no, it needs to be an offset of 2 feet. So we go to the wall, and then I'm going to pick the storefront type, the storefront type 1, which we created in a previous class. Make sure you have this chain checkbox enabled, which will allow me to create end-to-end walls. The walls are going to start from level 2, and then they're going to go all the way to the roof level. In addition to that, I'm going to give it a top offset of 3 feet so that it serves as a parapet as well. And then I'm going to give it an offset, the offset of 2 feet. Let me just try the first segment. I'm going to start from the intersection of 3. And again, if you want to like snap to the intersection, you can just SI on the fly. Just type SI. Go from here. And notice how the curtain wall is right off at the edge of the slab. I created one here, one piece. And this is the storefront type 1. I'm going to change it to the storefront, just the storefront 1. Yeah. And now that I'm thinking this better, maybe I do this at 24 plus 2.5, 26.5 inches away from the intersection of the grids. So I'm going to delete this. Sorry about that. So I'm going to do it the right way. I don't want the curtain wall to sit on top of this slab edges. I want it to be right at the edge. And so you go to architecture wall, and then I pick the storefront. And then in the offset, I put 26.5 inches. You just have to type it and make sure you pick the storefront. We are on level 2. And then I just type on the fly SI to snap to intersections. So go to the intersection of this grid, to the SI intersection of this grid. And then again, SI intersection of this grid. Oh, I canceled by mistake. Ugh, let's start. Wall, SI to SI. Oh, the offset, damn. Let's try it again. Architecture wall. Offset 26.5 inches. And I go SI. Oh. And as I build them, I actually snap into the midpoint of the columns. Notice how Revit automatically take care of the trims at the corners. As long as the command is active, it will continue doing this for you. So I'm doing a midpoint of the columns, which is exactly the same as the intersection. Make sure you have the offset on. If you don't have the offset, it's going to be at the grid line. What I really wanted is to sit outside of the edge of the slab. And then all I'm doing is tracing over this. And there you go. That is my building. When it switches in 3D, then I have all the storefront sitting outside of the edge of the slab. And there's also a gap between the storefront and the floors above. And there you go. I presumably this is ground level. So my level 2, it's ground level. Sorry, it's the level at ground, and then level 1, it's underground. Let's place a couple of doors in the street levels, assuming the street level is level 2. So we'll do what we did before. Select a mullion, unpin it, delete it, and tab select a mullion, unpin, delete, tab, select the mullion, unpin and delete. And then we're going to merge this this panel. Some of you asked me how to do that before. You select the grid, and then you pick the add remove segments in the contextual tab, and pick the portion of the grid you want to delete. This merged two panels together, and then you hit tab, select, unpin the panel, and swap the panel in the type selector using the door, curtain, wall, storefront. That's the first door. Let's pick another one. I'm going to pick another one right here. The location is irrelevant. Just pick wherever you feel. Select a panel, a mullion, unpin it, delete. Tab. Enable this. Over here. Tab. Unpin, delete. Tab. Unpin and delete. Select the grid. Add remove segments. Remove the segment. Escape. Tab. Yeah, the cursor needs to be moved at the edge of the panel. So tab, select the panel, unpin it, and swap it with the double curtain wall system. Um, and now if we want to change colors, we can do it as well. An easy way to do that, if you isolate the curtain wall in this way, for example, I'm going to select this curtain wall system, use the isolate element in the view controls. And with this isolation, it's if you switch to like a back elevation, you can very easily just select a bunch of panels at the same time. You can filter the elements and select just the curtain panels. And I could say, okay, all those panels, I'm going to unpin them and swap them with my red panel. Or you can be selective. You can just pick some of them. Like if you want every other one, you can do this. Or you can use the select by face, which is the select control in the lower right side. It's probably easier because actually you have to tab in order to do that. So you go over, hit tab, and that's it. Hit control to add. And I'm picking every other panel, unpin them, and swap them with the green panel that I created before. Or if one of these is going to be like a mullion, I can swap them also with a curtain, no, the louver panel. And so isolate the your facade to add the special conditions. You can also delete mullions, merge panels as needed. You have to unpin them because we started with the storefront. And after you're done, reset temporary hide, switch to a 3D view. And I have a storefront with 2 different panel types, some doors. You can continue customizing. I'm not judging anything about aesthetics here. This is just purely operational and show you how Revit works. But that would be the process if you're doing the storefront system. If we want to do a very manual method, again, you can select a storefront. I'm just going to select the one on the west side and swap it with a gigantic curtain wall one. Delete grid lines and panels. And this is a gigantic piece of glazing. And so you can start adding grids as needed. You go architecture, curtain grid. I'm very quickly and not paying attention on aesthetics. I'm just adding few grid lines which create panels to divisions. Then I go tab, select a panel and swap it with other wall types. Maybe this is a CMU. Yeah, hover over and tab. I changed this with another type, wall type. And in fact, when you do walls, you can actually host doors, the regular doors. This is a regular door hosted by a wall that's acting as a panel embedded in a storefront. Or you can tab select and add swap a panel with a storefront. Like I can swap this big panel with a storefront, and this The storefront, it's a panel inside a curtain wall system. And sometimes that is used, especially if, again, the way you do this is tab select a panel and swap it with a storefront. And again, you can customize as needed, swap with panels, create new panels, change it with louvers, etc. So does this make sense? This was a long discussion leading to the curtain wall around the building. But in the process, we learn how to create a custom material, load custom curtain wall panels, swap panels from one type to another one, and the corner conditions. Remember the corners? We talked about this last class. I think maybe a couple of you were not in that class, but the discussion was that when there are changes in direction in two adjacent curtain wall, then you could replace the overlapping elements with a corner panel. So what I did here what I'm going to do here is just select all the corner of these building. I have a total of 12 elements. Unpin them and then swap them to a quad corner molding condition. And this get reads of all the redundant elements, so it's okay to delete them. And then you end up with a corner mullion that has a very neat, clean connection between the two directions. So I'm going to do it again if you want to follow along. I am here on another corner condition, do a window selection to all the corner elements. Unpin the 12 elements, unpin, and swap them with a corner mullion, corner quad. Delete the redundant elements, and you'll have the clean condition in one corner. Okay, for those of you doing just a small remodel, which some of you, that's what you guys do. Sometimes, let me show you this quickly. Sometimes you may want to use very simple storefront for interior work. So let's say I'm going to crop the view to the floor plan of level 2. So I orient to a floor plan level 1. This is going to crop. I showed you this trick a couple of classes ago. It's level 2, sorry. Orient to view level 2. All right. So here is, let's say, office space, and you have a set of like a conference room that's going to have a combination of solid walls and storefronts. So in the interior, I'm going to create a wall, a very simple wall, an interior wall that it's 4/7/8, and it goes from level 1 to level 2, from level 2 to level 3, sorry. And I'm just going to do a rectangle here. So this is going to be a conference room, and all I want is a curtain wall here. So what you do is draw on top of this wall a storefront. So where you go, the way to do it, go to the wall command, and then select the storefront type, and just draw on top of the other wall. And it's going to immediately create a whole opening for you. And once you do that, then you can start playing with the dimensional constraint. You can say this goes from level 2 and it's unconnected. It's going to have a base offset of 2 feet and an unconnected height of 3 feet. And now you have your storefront looking into the conference room, or this could be a lab for those of you doing labs. You want a window looking into the labs. This will be an easy way of building your windows or your storefront there. Let me do, say you want to embed this with both a storefront and a door, which is typical for a lot of you guys doing lab. I created again another wall. It's a storefront, and I use the center of these. You select these this storefront, make it from level 1, and make it unconnected, and make them, I don't know, 9 feet. Oh, let's make it 8 feet. And then if you want one of these panels to be a door, again, you just do the same thing. Select the mullion, unpin it, delete it. And then tab select the panel, unpin the panel, and replace it with the curtain wall door. And I only have double doors here, but this might work. You can also load the single, a single panel door. And there you go. This is a storefront next to with an embedded door for an office condition or a conference room, which may be more in line of what a lot of you guys do at work. And because this is all following the rules of distribution, you can say that the spacing needs to be 3 feet. In the vertical, and then you have 3 feet doors and a 3 feet. Oh, this is going to change it for all of them. Yeah, this is the importance of duplicating, but this is 3 feet apart. This door is 3 feet, so double door wouldn't work. But I can load a single door family. Or from the insert tab, load Autodesk family. If you go to doors, curtain single, this is curtain single, this is the one I need, load it. And then tab select and swap this family with the new type. There you go. So combining storefronts with walls, it's an effective way to create this type of interior conditions. Okay, any question? All right, so to return the view to the full extent, just make sure that you disable the section box, and that's going to take me back to the full building. And now what I want to shift gears and talk a little bit about the some interior layouts and interior finishes and ceilings. So let's do very quickly. Let's do ceilings now. In Revit, when you create a new level, from scratch, it automatically creates a ceiling plan for you. So when we copy monitor these levels, notice how Revit automatically added also the associated ceiling plans for that view. And so maybe this is the right time to talk about this concept of view range. So let me open my PowerPoint. View range. Do I have it? Oh, here it is. Okay, every view has a property, an instance property called view range. View range. Notice how this view range is locked. And this is because the properties of the view are associated with a view template. And when you associate a view template with a view, this prevents the user from making any changes in the view controls because they are being driven by the template itself. But what I'm going to do is duplicate this view. And this could be a working plan. And this is very typical in the production of Revit to create a custom views that are work in progress with your initials. And what that means is this is a copy of the level, and you can change, you can remove the view template associated with this view, and you can change any properties, and you're not going to impact the representation of the construction plan slated for printing. And so level 1 in here, I just duplicate a view, right click, duplicate, rename it. I put my initials at the end, and I remove the view template. And so if I make any change, I'm going to impact my view, but I don't make changes to the official views intended for construction. And so the view range, when you scroll, I remove the template, and the view range is a button in the instance properties of the view that display a series of levels. These are work planes that drive the vertical visibility of objects in a view. And so let me show you what that means. So the view range is a set of 4 different planes. And within these planes, there are 2 ranges. There's the primary range, and there's the view depth. The primary range is a set of 3 working planes that defines the total visible area of the elements in a plan view. The easy to understand is the cut plane. The cut plane is by default associated with the level in which the view is created. So notice that it's grayed out because the cut plane is always measured from the level view, the level at the view. The bottom work plane, I mean, the area between the, let's disable this a second. Oh, cursor. The area between the bottom plane and the cut plane, which is this, the bottom plane and the cut plane, this region is the area in the project where things are going to display in projection view. Remember the foreground view, the foreground properties of the elements, of the hatches. Everything that is between the bottom and the cut plane will be projection lines. Anything that is cut by the cut plane will be displayed in the cut properties of the materials and the object styles. So elements that are cut by the cut plane obviously are going to appear darker. And then there is an upper region. The upper region is between the cut plane and the top plane. Most of the elements between that region are not going to be visible for you, except elements that are part of the Windows category, casework category, or generic model category. So if a window falls between the cut plane and the top plane, it's going to display in a plan view. This is the case, for example, of clerestory windows that are probably 14, 15 foot above floor level. If that window it's between this range, even if it's overlapping, then it will display in floor plan. The same is true for the casework. So if you have kitchen cabinet or lab cabinets, and the lab cabinets are intersecting the view range between the cut plane and the top plane, the casework is going to show as dashed line. So that's why when you draw a kitchen and you see that the cabinets, the projection of the cabinets and the view are overhead line types, and they are present there because they intersect this region. So if the cabinets are really, really high, then you may increase the top plane to make sure that it intersects with that. And then generic models, if the generic model category intersects this region, then it's also going to display in the floor plan. Example of this is if you have a canopy at the front of a canopy at the front of a building, and you want the canopy to display, the projection of the canopy to be displayed on the ground, then you can model that canopy as a generic model, make sure that it sits between the cut plane and the top plane, and then that canopy projection is going to be displayed at the ground level. There's no need to trace them over with additional lines or additional model lines. By default, this is out of the box behavior for these categories only. And then there's another range, which is the view depth. And again, the view depth is how much more below the bottom you want elements to be visible. And this will be useful if you have like a double height space and you want to see like the furniture that's lying on the ground level of that double space. You can increase the view depth to a different level, to a different floor. There are also special line types associated with certain categories. For example, if a structural element falls between the view depth or a structural wall fall in the view depth, those elements are going to be displayed in a floor plan as projection line, dash line. I don't see architects using much of that. Maybe if you want to refer to an underground pit or an underground tank below your ground level, maybe you want to increase a view depth. But by default, the view depth is always set to 0, except in a special type of views. The bottom cut plane is always at a 0 elevation. The cut plane by default is always at 4 feet. And the top one is always at 7'6". There are categories in Revit that cannot be cut. Walls are cuttable, windows are cuttable, but furniture is not cuttable. For example, what that means is that no matter where the cut plane falls in a furniture category, the display of the furniture is always going to be from above, it's a top view. And to get a sense of the things that are cuttable, you could just open visibility graphics. When you open VG, notice that the categories that have this gray color in the visibility graphic overrides are not cuttable categories. So that is one of the limitations of, or maybe it's works to the advantage. There are some categories that cannot be cut. All right, so why all this discussion? Because when it comes to, and excuse my dog, I think my roommate is just arriving, and every time somebody arrives home starts barking. There is, when it comes to the ceiling plan, the view category reverse, the view range reverse. So we have a view range with a top plane, cut plane bottom, and a view depth, but the planes are reversed. And what that means is that the view depth is not something you're looking down, you're actually looking up. And so if you want the view depth to capture elements in the floor above, you can certainly increase that. And in addition to that level, you can give it an additional offset. Notice when I did that, when I increased the view depth to the level above, I'm actually seeing the projection of the slab edges and the curtain wall above. When it comes to a ceiling plan, you can see it here. The different ranges arrange the elements that are placed between the top range and the cut planes will be projection view. And then the view depth is everything that it's above the top plane. So think of this diagram, just mirror the space, and you will be able to understand it a little better. Let's see, maybe Autodesk have a better diagram here. Yes. Yeah, there's a whole explanation about how this works. So there's none for the ceiling plans. Yeah, I need to find a better diagram for the ceiling plans. Okay, so in the view range, I increased the view depth to the level above in order to display the elements above. And this is useful to display like beams, etc. Okay, let's draw some ceilings. So I am here on level 1, the ceiling plan, and I can start creating ceilings under the architectural tab, ceiling tools. There are 2 methods of creating ceilings. One is automatic, another is by sketch. I'm going to use the sketch method because it allows me to draw an area with a certain ceiling height. So I'm going to do a big ceiling around this rectangular element. So I'm going to do a rectangle here, give it an offset of -2 feet, and create maybe a composite ceiling 2x2 ceiling, and go from this corner to that corner. And remember, the offset is what makes the sketch lines be placed at a certain distance away from my clicks. So that's why I put a -2, meaning that I want a rectangle in this space that it's 2 feet away from the columns. And then if I want to also the columns to be part of this definition, you just I can just click from this corner. Oh, I'm just going to ignore that. I just keep it like that. And then hit the green checkbox. And this is my 2x2 ceiling grid. Let's do another one here just to repeat the process. So you just go to architecture, ceilings, choose the sketch method in the contextual tab, pick in the type selector the 2x2, and then use this rectangle tool, make an offset of -2 feet. Just type -2, and then hit the first click at the corner of 3 of the column and 3, and the second click at the opposite column. Hit the green checkbox, and that's it. You do the other ceiling. Ceilings are super easy to use. For a lot of us, it's important to understand or communicate to the contractor what is the start of the ceiling layout. And that's something we can also force Revit to do by aligning some of these hatch patterns lines. So let me show you how that works. These different lines that are part of the hatch pattern are lines that you can pick and drag. And by picking them, dragging them, you're actually changing the layout of the hatch. If I want to be really precise and say, okay, the start of the layout of the ceiling must be this point. What I need to do is select this line from this intersection and move it to snap to that endpoint. And then you can add a node that this is the ceiling layout start, the start point. So let's do that. Select one of the lines, and then use the move command, and use the intersection of the ceilings as a handle. That's my handle. That's how I'm going to grab this grid, and then I'm going to drop it to the endpoint of the ceiling. And now these become the start point of the ceiling layout, and everything goes all across. Now, if you want to like divide it and evenly divide the start and the end using like half panels, all you need to do is move it 1 foot. And then move it another 1 foot in the opposite direction. All I'm doing is using the move command. And now these have a 1 foot offset all around. I mean, the design intent can change from ceiling to ceiling, but this is how you create like residual panels if you have to, or make it center into the space. For this exercise, I'm just going to leave it the panel in aligned with one of the corners, and the same is true for the other ones. I'm going to pick one of the lines, move the grid from a grid intersection to a ceiling boundary. Now I have these two as starting point for the grid layout. Ceilings can be, I can still access the boundary of the ceiling and make some changes in it. For example, if I know there's going to be a recess condition here in this shape of a circle, then you can just edit the sketch, edit the boundary, and add additional holes. In this case, I'm going to use an offset of 5 feet to go from here Oh, minus 5 feet. Go from here to here. And I have an opening inside that ceiling. And if I want that ceiling to be recessed in a different plane, then I could do another ceiling on top of it using the sketch button. And let's say this is going to be, instead of 2 by 2, it's going to be Gboard, and it's going to be at 7'6", 7'6", and that ceiling it's 7 foot. It's at 7'6" below, 6 inches below the main ceiling. And then you can build little walls around to do the Gport soffits if needed, or you can create in-place families to infill that. All right. Same true with light fixtures. You can bring light fixtures from a library of components and place it where it needs to be. I'm just going to add, I think I might have one here, light fixtures. There is a category of light fixtures that I don't see here. Light fixtures. I don't see it, so maybe I need to load them. So you go to the Insert tab, load family. Go to the Imperial Library and go into the light fixture, lighting category, architectural, internal. You can select linear downlights. Maybe I'm going to control select downlights, maybe 2 by 2s, truffer 2 by 2, 2 by 4, pendants, linear LED. All those light fixtures will be available to you in the library of components under the lighting fixture category. And to add 2 by 4s, just drag and drop the type. The different types vary by the number of lamps and power consumption. And this is a limitation of Revit that I don't like. Like when you drag and drop a lighting fixture, it doesn't snap automatically into the corner condition. So you have to place it and then select the light fixtures and move from one corner to the intersection. And then from here, you can do copy multiple to copy a light fixture from one corner point to another corner point. Copy the command multiple. And once you copy light fixtures associated with grid intersections, Revit automatically establish a relationship with those objects. So notice I placed 5 different light fixtures. Maybe this was not aligned properly. If because they are copied, aligned with the grid lines, they establish a temporary dimension with that grid line, which is like a constraint. And if you move this, notice how the grid could shift, but the light fixtures will move with it. Okay, so I covered a lot of information today. We finished the curtain walls, how to create custom hatches, how to add those materials and embed it into the curtain wall systems, add the curtain components, create ceilings, we finish our exercise of this My Ugly Building here. We change and add some doors, change some materials, create a custom created curtain wall system. Next class, next Thursday, I'm going to focus on the some of the interiors settings. So we're going to do an office layout, a very simple office layout on the ground level, on level 2. And add some furniture and do some like documentation around tags and quantification. So any question here? Let's see, I don't see anything on the chat panel. If everything was clear, we can disconnect now. Remember, the recording is available on the YouTube channel. Feel free to replay it if you fall behind or need to catch up. Again, next class, I'm going to start with a little test, nothing to sweat about. And I guess I'll see you Thursday then. If you need to stay over, feel free to stay, and I can just have a one-on-one with you. All right, guys. Thanks for calling in. See you next class. Okay, I think.
Have a good one.
All right, have a good one. Let me stop the recording here. Stop.